The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show. Real people. Real opinions. Real talk radio. 4FM.
It is Niall Boylan with you right through to 2 o'clock this afternoon. Let's get to on a slightly lighter note. Well, when I say a lighter note, a happy note. It seems the winning lottery ticket was bought in Malahide in Dublin. Jeepers. Not too far from where I live, and I would regularly buy one of those tickets when I think it's going to be a lot of money, but it wasn't me. I can assure you, because if it was me, I tell you, if I did win the lottery, all right, just so as you know, for future reference, if you hear it has been claimed and nobody knows who it is, if you hear this, you know it's definitely me, all right, because I'd be gone. I'm joking. But no, actually, I'm not joking. 38 million. Would you bother working? I really don't know. Let me just get another male perspective on this. Mr. Lade.
Yes, sir.
David Lade.
Yes.
Would you be still reading the news if you were 38 million richer?
I come in now and again, yeah, absolutely.
Would you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you would. Helena O'Toole.
Yes.
Would you be there? Would I see you through that window if you won 38 million?
Not a hope in hell. I'd be on my jet off to Barbados. That's where I'd be.
With David Lade.
Come if he wants.
Thanks a million.
I don't know what you would do, but I think most people would probably ring up their boss and say, I'll see you. I won't be back. But I suppose we can't ignore the fact that everybody is talking today about a story that, although I'm not going to minimize it and say that only one person is dead, one person is dead is too many. My condolences to the family of the Japanese man who lost his life in Dundalk yesterday due to this random attack. Now, according to the Irish Mirror, yesterday's attack was carried out by a teenager who arrived in Ireland just days ago seeking asylum. The 18-year-old Egyptian national was taken down and disarmed by brave unarmed Gardaí, and fair play to them, who confronted him after he had killed the Japanese man and injured 2 other Irish people as well. And God knows what he would have done if he had been left to his wicked ways. Now, the Gardaí are now examining if a terror attack was the motive for the spree, but have yet to confirm whether it is or not. And I don't really believe that's important. The point is that he was an asylum seeker in this country, unchecked, unvetted. He was a person who should not have been in this country. Which is quite common, sadly, in this country at the moment. One thing for sure is that the man was an asylum seeker who was recently known to be in Ireland. The assailant was armed with 2 knives and later an iron bar as he continued his assaults on 2 older men at separate locations nearby. Now, a media briefing of the Chief Superintendent, Christy Mangan, said, "A terror attack is a line of inquiry. It certainly is a line we will be looking at." Now, the Chief Super Mangan confirmed that January the 1st, the suspect made an application for asylum in Ireland, and it was his first contact with the Garda Síochána, which surprises me in some sense that here's a guy who arrives, I'm assuming through Northern Ireland, from the UK after allegedly being refused asylum in the UK, arrives in Ireland, presents himself to an Garda Síochána, and is allowed to go on his merry way, which kind of seems quite bizarre. Now, they did say he seemed like a nice kind of fella. Clearly he wasn't. But he's allowed to go on his merry way. Now, a huge international investigation is now underway as Dundalk Gardaí launch a murder inquiry. Their colleagues in the National Units of Counter-Terrorism International and the Garda National Immigration Bureau are also assisting and are involved in that. It is also understood Gardaí investigators are liaising with a number of foreign police forces to determine the journey that the man made from Egypt to Ireland. And the Chief Super said he is 18 years of age. It is early in the investigation, but I can say the suspect is an Egyptian, and that is simply what we know at the moment. We would be very interested to know how the suspect came into our jurisdiction, how long he was here for, who he was associated with, and we certainly will be appealing to the people who know the suspect, or knew the suspect while he was here. Now, I'm pretty sure he didn't know too many people if he was only here from January the 1st. He also went on to say, "We are satisfied he was on his own. There is no indication any other persons were assisting him, and we, at this point in time, we don't have a background." So they know very little about this man, which is quite sad and quite concerning, by the way, for the Justice Department and the Justice Minister, that we have an Egyptian man, just like thousands of others in this country, wandering around, presenting themselves at Garda stations, and we've no idea who they are, where they came from, how they got here. I mean, how is this even possible? I mean, we're living in 2018. We have such great technology and, you know, we believe we live in a secure country. Our government are responsible for keeping us safe. Our Gardaí are responsible for keeping us safe at our ports, our customs officers and everything else. And yet people can wander in and out of this country. And the weak link is the border at Northern Ireland. And I've been looking on the Journal, and a lot of people are saying the same thing. Well, sure, maybe the hard border wasn't such a bad idea. Because people can come into the UK. Now, maybe after Brexit, that would be a lot tougher to do. But people are already in the UK. There's hundreds of thousands of illegals in the UK already. And this has been said before. They go into Belfast. They're not interested in staying in Belfast. There's nothing for them there. The social welfare system in Belfast is disastrous. They don't have the same asylum seeker process in Belfast. They don't put them into direct provision the way we do and, you know, look after people the way we do. So the immediate reaction for most asylum seekers or anybody seeking asylum is not to stay in Belfast. It's to hop into a car, get onto a bus and go to Dublin or go to Dundalk, as the case may be, which has been happening for years. And now eventually we're actually saying it. Where's all the lefties today, by the way? Where are all those lefties today? All the open border people, where are they? Not to be seen, not a squeak out of them. Because here we have a classic example of where it can fail and where it can go wrong. And I don't want to come across as some sort of, you know, we're using this as a knee-jerk reaction. But it does take something like this for us to actually say, well, hold on a second. And I'll give you an example. In the abortion debate, for years we'd been kind of asking for a referendum. Now, I'm not saying which side you should vote on, but it took the Savita case, one woman to die to start the debate and to get the ball rolling, to eventually get to the point where at this year where we're going to have a referendum to give women that option and men that option to vote on abortion. Well, here's the situation again, where it'll take one situation, and this is the situation, where you've got a man who walked into this country unchecked by anybody. He could have been anybody. He could be a mass murderer for all we don't. We don't know anything about him. Walks into a Garda station and is still not arrested, has no papers, no reason to be here, and is left on his merry way, unfortunately, to commit a horrible, horrible atrocity. So the question has to be asked, is it time to tighten the borders? Is it time that we actually started to look seriously at this and ignore these left-leaning lunatics in this country who believe it should be a free-for-all? Text 53544. That's 53544. Or would that be a knee-jerk reaction to one situation? Now, I know the Daily Mail are running with a story this morning suggesting that he said Al Akbar before he did it. Look, I don't know how true that is. You know, maybe somebody thought they heard him say that, but on Garda Síochána I haven't verified that, so I don't know how true that is. That's probably scaremongering, to be honest with you. Text 53544. The question is it time to tighten our borders? I believe it's irrelevant, to be honest with you, in relation to his religion or his background. I believe that's kind of irrelevant at the moment. The more important point is we had an illegal alien in this country who was clearly very dangerous, and nobody seemed to care. Text 53544. Is it time we tighten our borders? He's one of thousands. Hassan, you're on Classic Hits. How you doing, Hassan?
Hello, Niall.
Hassan, I don't want to be jumping on the bandwagon and coming across a knee-jerk reaction. I'm not going to go down the Muslim route or, you know, the Al Akbar route. But in saying that, we have, I don't know, the guess is probably between 30 and 100,000 illegal people in this country. And it seems to be quite easy to wander into this country at any stage if you want to. Is that concerning?
Yeah, well, if it happened based on, according to what you just described, yes, this is a catastrophe. This shouldn't happen. Actually, people shouldn't come and walk freely without us knowing who they are. This shouldn't happen. It's just too clumsy. I don't know enough about the immigration laws in Europe, but
we don't seem to have. This is the problem. We don't seem to have any immigration laws.
Well, no. To my knowledge, according to the immigration laws, if you're an asylum seeker, if you land in any country, the first country is where you should apply.
That's right.
So if you land in England and then show up in Ireland, the only thing, I think that's the law, that you should be returned to England because that's where you landed first.
Yes, you
So
should be
that-
immediately
that's very-
you should be immediately arrested and refused to your last point of entry, and then it's up to
Yes,
them to
of
deal
course.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it should happen.
But see, what happens is, Hassan, if we started to take that seriously and do that, you have all the lefties turning around and saying, "Oh, that's racist. You can't do that. Well, humanitarian causes, and oh God, he's only a human being," and you just can't do that.
Well, you had a guest last night who supported the open border policies, but
Ali, yeah.
no, this is crazy. In reality, this is not possible. We cannot have open borders at all. We should have some measures. But, Niall, how can we talk about this without connecting this to an ideology? Because we don't have this problem with a North Korean refugee here, right? Because we never hear that a North Korean refugee is somebody to death here, right? So it's coming from a particular community's ideology.
Well, I mean, with the greatest respect, hang on. I can go back to 2001, and I'm looking at a story here in the Irish Times, and people probably forget this, by the way. Before this kind of phenomenon of people getting into lorries and cars and driving down busy streets and killing people, right, which is, we believe, a kind of new phenomenon. In 2001, a man got into a car in Dublin, a Ford Escort, and drove down Henry Street, injuring 10 people, knocking people down on the way. He was a failed asylum seeker from Nigeria. So this phenomenon of getting into a car and mowing people down is not new, as not as new as we think. So, I mean...
Well, it's not very commonplace as it is with regards to a certain community, in the Islamic community, right? It doesn't happen every day. Yes, you could have tons of problems with your society and do a lot of stupid things. But you are not doing in the name of a deity, and you're not trying to impose that ideology on the rest of us.
Well,
right?
by the way, I need to be abundantly clear, Hassan, that we don't know if that was the motive for this man's attacks yesterday. So I have to be abundantly clear about that to the listeners, that we don't know if that was the motive. I know the Daily Mail are suggesting it, but I don't know if that was the motive.
Well, the reports have it that he said Allahu Akbar, right? Let's say he was angry. Okay, let's assume for the sake of argument that the only reason he did that was he was angry. He was refused asylum and he was angry, okay? Why would a religion of peace be appealing to an angry person if it is a religion of peace?
Well, I just remind my listeners, well, because you've been on particularly at night time and not so much during the day, our daytime audience, that you are a former Muslim. You're not anymore. You're from Iran. And you don't believe that Islam is a religion of peace?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Okay. So, but, when we talk about asylum seekers, the majority that come into this country, many of them are from Africa. Many of those are Christian, by the way. They're not Muslim. Many would be Christian. And, a lot of them would lie to get into the country. This is not their first port. So are you suggesting that at Dublin Airport, well, the majority are probably not coming in through Dublin Airport, they're coming in through Northern Ireland, but are you suggesting at Dublin Airport, if they come in and they say, oh, well, I'm from Nigeria, from Lagos, well, we should be saying, well, I'm sorry, you can't come in here because you clearly didn't come here first. You must have went to France or London.
Yes, but there are laws. If you go to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, there are laws. It's not that...
but they're ignored. They're ignored, Hassan, because there's no direct flight from Lagos to Ireland.
That's a different issue. If they are ignored, then we have to discuss that part. But there are laws that if you land somewhere, you have to apply there. So it's very simple. All you have to do is to return this person to where he came from. And that is absolutely legal. This is issued by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. That's the highest authority we have. So there is nothing wrong with that. But what I am interested in discussing is that increasing security alone is not the solution. We cannot rely on security only. We are dealing with an ideological war. This is a combination of ideology and war. We need a combination of security, force, and enlightenment. And we need an enlightened society. And to get an enlightened society, we need to safeguard free speech. We need more free speech, not less. But these kinds of ideologies that are pouring into Europe, they are limiting more and more such rights as free speech.
So when you were saying free speech, that we're actually afraid to have a serious debate about what genuinely concerns us, because if we do have this debate, we're suddenly called racists or bigots or Islamophobes or whatever it is. In other words, we're not allowed to even have the debate anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And you may risk losing your job if you are a college lecturer and you discuss these things according to the written sources, written by the Muslim historians themselves. If you put that history on the table, you might lose your job.
Well, you don't only lose your job. I mean, I spoke to you before, and I know you're currently writing a book at the moment, and you are risking your own life.
So you see, that's the question. When I am writing a history, if I were writing a book about Niall Boylan's history, free of charge for Niall Boylan, Niall would come and thank me for that, right? But when I say, well, let me write the history of Islam to the Western audience, and people get angry. So there should be something wrong here. You should be happy that I am translating your history to the Western audience. If your religion is good, peaceful, if it is what you say it is, you should be happy. You should be thanking me. You shouldn't threat me, you know? So the very fact that as soon as we talk about Islam, we hear these kinds of comments. Is it safe? Are you okay? So are you not Islamophobe? These facts tell me that we do have a problem with a particular ideology, and we are not allowed to discuss this. So we have to safeguard free speech in order to analyze this.
Okay, well, leaving aside, the ideology, and I know it's a big part of it, and I don't want to ignore it completely, right? But we do have asylum seekers from other countries, other parts of the world, who may be Christian as well, and who may be dangerous for whatever reason, not because of an ideology, who could be just criminals from other countries, be it from Nigeria or wherever, or Pakistan or India, wherever it happens to be, non-EU citizens. How do we deal with a situation where we have basically a road called the M1, which leads up to Belfast, which they can get a boat or a plane straight over to England, so come into England and wander down into Ireland? How do you deal with that situation? How can you actually stop this from happening now? Because it's becoming commonplace.
Well, our friends in England are solving this for us. Brexit will hopefully stop this, but I seriously doubt that even Brexit will solve it.
Well, even with Brexit, you've already got probably 200,000 or 300,000, if not more, illegals in Britain. And during Brexit, of course, they are now going to be very worried because there's a possibility that there will be a roundup of people and deportations. They're going to come to Ireland. Because that's the only, Ireland or France will be the only safe place for them to go.
Well, there are, a humanitarian aspect of it is that the Western countries are responsible somehow in whatever happening in the eastern part of the world, right? We cannot close our eyes on the crisis that is happening in Syria, in Egypt, in the Muslim world, across the Muslim world. We don't have a very peaceful Muslim country. That's fact.
Okay, well, do me a favour, because I want to bring a few people in here. Just stay there, please, if you can, Hassan. You can text us at 53544. I'm asking you, do we have a way, or is it possible? Should we be tightening our borders? Should we be taking this seriously, what happened yesterday? Or would that be just a knee-jerk reaction to what is really only one incident?
The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show with Fine Wines, your local off-license in Clare. Wishing all our loyal customers a very happy new year. myfinewines.ie.
So the text screen there was a border before and people still were able to get across, so hard doesn't make a difference. Great show. Yeah, unless I start talking like Donald Trump, let's build a wall. It's mind-boggling to know that an asylum seeker who was refused in a previous country is allowed to do whatever he likes Well, the very fact the British authorities let him go after being refused is mind-boggling, yeah. The law is a joke, says Stephen in Finglas. Stephen, you're right. The very fact that he was refused asylum and managed to leave the country and go to another country next door, the mind boggles at what we're actually doing and how we're allowing this to happen. The deportation of a convicted terrorist from Ireland is still going through the High Court. The cost of deporting this individual must be into the millions, says Pat. I'm well aware of that particular case. It's incredible, Pat, and I completely agree with you. And it is. It's free legal aid, and it's costing the state millions to deport one individual who we clearly know has a very serious problem. Keep texting 53544. Hassan is still on the line, and I'm going to go to Jason in a second. But Hassan, a lot of people are texting in and want to know, well, you can answer this question yourself if you want to. Why did you come here? I mean, why Ireland? I'm just curious. I know you came from Iran, but why Ireland?
Why Ireland? Actually, I had little choice myself. It's a long story I have published. I don't want to use your show for my commercials, but I have published my memoir, The Flagless One.
Okay, and how long ago did you come here?
I came here in 2008.
Okay, and did you come here, and again, you don't have to answer any of these questions if you don't want to, did you come here through the legal route, or did you come here through the illegal route?
Well, I was a refugee in China and India for about 12, 13 years. And then because of the September 11, most resettlement projects had been stopped. So we were there in a limbo, basically. And then by 2008, so the United Nations contacted all other countries across the Western world, and Ireland accepted us as a program refugee. And a program refugee is a refugee whose paperwork have already been done before coming here.
In other words, you had been checked out and your background had been checked.
Yes, we waited, I think, about more than about 2 years, more than 1 year and a half, something. So it took us that long, and eventually they gave us a travel document, and we landed in Dublin as program refugees.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for asking the background, but people were texting in just asking, obviously, what your background was.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry, Jason, you're on Classic Hits. How you doing, Jason?
How you doing, Noel?
Okay, but do you believe that we should be taking a harder line? Now, I know the immigration, sort of, those organisations out there who are paid thousands every year, or well, probably a lot more than that actually, to support illegal immigrants in this country. There's probably 30 to 50,000 people, maybe even more. I don't know how many illegals there is in this country. Do you believe we should be taking a harder line on that? And those who do get refused should be basically put on a plane or a boat or whatever it happens to be.
Definitely.
And
if you came here illegally, get back to where you came from. Simple as. Direct provision, that's wrong as well. It should be shut down and send them all back, or give them jobs and let them out, let them work. If they're
Can I say something now?
yes, Hassan.
When, as a refugee of years, many years, I think I'm eligible to comment on this particular case. When I landed in China, I landed illegally, right? Because my intention was not to stay in China. I was going to Canada, and I have written this in detail. But I landed in China illegally, okay? Based on your philosophy, based on your idea, the Chinese authorities should have returned me back to Iran.
Exactly, should have. Yeah, they should have.
So I would have been executed.
Well, I didn't know that. I don't know the circumstances of where you left.
Okay, so you cannot risk people's lives because...
Well, I didn't...
Listen.
I didn't buy your book, pal, so I didn't know.
The whole concept...
You wouldn't share any info with us.
Sorry, the whole concept of United Nations is to protect lives. So
But with the greatest respect, Hassan, we've heard it from the horse's mouth that one man who was responsible for looking at the files of those who are claiming asylum in this country said out of 500 files that he examined on appeal, only 2 were telling the truth. He believed that only 2 people were telling the truth. Mm-hmm. In other words, that their lives were genuinely, like yours, in danger if they went back to their country.
Well, that's the immigration problem. They should check this background. The claim.
If he's saying it's such a small percentage, and let's be conservative and say 5% are telling the truth, which it's not, according to him. that means that out of the 5,000 people currently in this country in direct provision, there's only about 200 or 300 of them actually telling the truth.
Yes, exactly. But again, Niall.
So what are we doing, Hassan? We're allowing them to appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal, and then eventually some will wander out. But it's not like they're locked in or anything like that. They know they're not going to get asylum. We had one guy in the studio here from the Congo who had a deportation order for 10 years, and he's on social welfare.
Exactly.
I mean, Hassan?
That's a joke.
It is a joke, Hassan.
Well, I agree. It shouldn't take this long. I waited for about 17 years, so this shouldn't take this long. I agree.
It should be a case of you come in, you apply for asylum, we check you out. If we think you're lying, bye-bye.
2 weeks. 2 weeks vetting should be too long.
Yeah, but on paper, yes, it is that easy. But in reality, Niall, if you are interviewing a person whose life may or may not be in danger, but you have to side by him. You have to assume that he is telling the truth, because if he is telling the truth and you send him back, you would get him killed. So as a person working for United Nations, you must stand with his claim. That is your job, to save lives. Of course, you make mistakes. That is a separate issue. But it's like accidents. How many people get killed in car accidents every day?
But many of the individuals coming into this country on the asylum, claiming refugee status or on the asylum process, we don't even know who they are, Hassan. They're coming in with no documents, many of them, false documents, others. We're trying to check out through Interpol or through the authorities, be it in Africa or India or Pakistan, as to who these individuals might be. Some of them we can't even get information on. They're using fake names. I mean, what are we supposed to do? And it's almost like we're not allowed to say no. Because when we do say no, there's another appeal. Then there's another appeal. And before you know it, 8 years is here. They've racked up 8 years. And then they go to a court and say, well, hold on, you've allowed me to stay 8 years. I've just had 2 children who are now in your schools. You can't now throw me out at this stage. Okay, loads and loads of text coming in at 53544. That's 53544. I'm going to come to Rima after the break, and I'm sorry for keeping everybody so long today. So many people want to get involved in this conversation. Stephen says,